Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to College Opening Lines. I'm your host, Ramon Scott. We're going to give to you right now the opening line for next week's college football games, focusing on the release at the Circa. They have the highest limits, they take pride in their opening line. These will also have the latest moves, what they've opened the line and the first moves as people are punching in their max bets here on the card for next week. Let's get right to it. We'll also feature lines here representing offshore from Bovada and from major U.S. online book DraftKings as well. Here we go. Got Halloween football here on Tuesday with Buffalo and Toledo in this one. In fact, what we'll do is go in rotation order. So this will be 301, 302, Buffalo and Toledo. Toledo opened a 14-point favorite. And that's where they are right now. Toledo by 14. Total opened 54 and a half. It is now 53. Buffalo and Toledo is now at 7:30 Eastern and 4:30 Pacific. Northern Illinois at Central Michigan. Northern Illinois opened a 2-point favorite. Both Circa and DraftKings, they've moved to a 4-point favorite at Circa. Northern Illinois on the road here at Central Michigan. They're a 4-point favorite. Total open 47 and a half, and it's still 47 and a half. On Wednesday now, Ball State at Bowling Green as we continue the action here this week. And Bowling Green was a 6.5-point favorite at DraftKings on their opening release, and that's where it remained. Circa opened the game at -4, and it was bet up to 6.5. So the total here, Ball State and Bowling Green opened 40 and a half. It's still 40 and a half. Kent State at Akron. In this one, DraftKings had Akron a 4-point favorite, and it's still a 4-point favorite there. Circa opened it Akron 3. It was bet up to 4. The total opened 44 and a half at Circa. It has been bet down to 43 and a half. Kent State and Akron is now at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on Wednesday. On Thursday, there are 3 games, including TCU and Texas Tech. DraftKings had this one at -3. Circa opened at -1. It was bet up to -3. Total here opened 57 and a half. It's still 57 and a half. Wake Forest and Duke. DraftKings opened this one Duke 9.5. It's since been bet up to 10 at DraftKings. Circa opened Duke 11. It's been bet up to 13. Duke is a big mover so far against Wake Forest. Open as low as 9.5 up to 13 now. This total opened 54 and a half at Circa. It is now 43 and a half. This is a 10-point move to the under Wake Forest and Duke. South Alabama and Troy. DraftKings opened this one Troy -4. It's been since moved up to 5.5 at DraftKings. Circa opened the game 6, and it's now 7.5. So this looks like a pretty big move here. Troy opened as low as 4 at DraftKings, now up to 7.5 at Circa. Troy is already on the move for their Thursday matchup against South Alabama. Total opened 43 and a half. It has now been bet up to 45 and a half. South Alabama and Troy. On Friday now, 2 games on the main board, Boston College and Syracuse. This one opened at DraftKings -4. It has since been bet down to to Syracuse -2. At Circa, the current line is Syracuse -3. Um, it does say, yeah, I'm going to say there's a typo here. It does say it opened 3, but I'm going to say that was just a misentry there. Let's just call Syracuse 3. Total opened 53 and a half and is now down to 50. Boston College and Syracuse, 3.5 point move to the under. Looks like it's moving towards Boston College though here. Colorado State and Wyoming. DraftKings opened this one, Wyoming 10, and it's been bet all the way down to 8. Circa opened this one, Wyoming -6. It's been bet up to 7. So let's just call it right now 7.5. But it opened as high as 10. Colorado State and Wyoming total opened 40.5. It is now 44. Move to the over here, Colorado State and Wyoming. All right, that's it for the weekday games. So let's get ready for a big Saturday now and start with 321, 322, Coastal Carolina and Old Dominion. Circa opened this one, Coastal Carolina -2 on the road. It's still -2 on the road. They opened the total 54.5. It is down to 53.5. Connecticut and Tennessee. DraftKings opened this one 34. Circa opened this one Tennessee 30. It's now Tennessee 35. Call it Tennessee 35. Total opened 55.5. It is now 53.5. Totals moved down here a little bit. Connecticut and Tennessee. Also want to mention, I'm going to do better on this. Coastal Carolina Old Dominion is now at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. All right, continuing on. Miami and NC State. DraftKings opened this one, Miami -3 on the road. It's since been bet up to 3.5. Circa already has it at 5. They opened at 5. It's now 5 at Circa. Miami on the move here a little bit against NC State. Total opened 48.5. It is down to 45.5. 3-point move to the under here. Miami of Florida, NC State. Game time now, 8 Eastern and 5 Pacific. Wisconsin and Indiana. Wisconsin opened 11 at Circa. It's been bet down to 10.5. Total opened 42.5. It's still 42.5. Central Florida and Cincinnati. Central Florida opened a 4-point favorite at Circa, where it still sits a 4-point favorite. DraftKings opened at 4.5. It's already up to 5. Maybe a little bit of move here to Central Florida, up to a 5-point favorite. Total opened Cincinnati and Central Florida 54.5. It's now up to 59. 4.5-point move to the over here. Central Florida and Cincinnati. That game at 12:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. Jacksonville State and South Carolina. I like the Gamecocks in this one. South Carolina opened a 13-point favorite at Circa, and it is now up to 15. DraftKings opened this one 16.5. It is down to 15.5 there. So call it around 15.5 here right now. Total opened 51.5. It has been bet up to 53.5. Ohio State and Rutgers. Circa opened this one, Ohio State -20. It's been bet down to Ohio State -18. Move on Rutgers here. DraftKings currently has it at 19. Ohio State and Rutgers total opened 44.5. It is down to 43. Florida State and Pittsburgh. DraftKings opened this one 23, and it is now 21 at Circa. Circa opened at 22. I would just call this a move to Pittsburgh right now. Opened as high, or I saw as high as 23.5 at DraftKings. It's been bought back a little bit, but with the line at 21, Circa. I'd say the move is a slightly to Pittsburgh here. The total opened 47 and a half. It has now been bet up to 50 and a half. 3-point move to the over. Florida State and Pittsburgh. Penn State and Maryland. Penn State opened 10 at Circa. It's been bet up to 11. It's 11 and a half at DraftKings. Total opened 48 and a half. It is now 50. Penn State and Maryland. Game time now 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Marshall and Appalachian State. It's 4 everywhere, open 4. App State -4 everywhere, still -4. Total open 52 and a half. It's been bet up to 56. Marshall and Appalachian State is now at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific. Tulane and East Carolina. Circa opened this one. Tulane -17. It's been bet down here to 15. The move is on East Carolina. Total opened here 50 and a half and is bet down to 48 and a half. Tulane and East Carolina now at 12:30 Pacific time, 3:30 Eastern. Nebraska and Michigan State. Circa opened this one 2. It's been bet up to 4 for Nebraska. DraftKings opened this one 3. It's been bet up to 3.5. The move's on Nebraska here. Open as low as 2, now up to 4. Total open 35 and a half. It's been bet down here to 34 with Nebraska and Michigan State. BYU and West Virginia. BYU here is an underdog. West Virginia opened as low as 6 at DraftKings. DraftKings is already up to 7. Circa opened it -8, and they're already up to -9. So this is a big move on West Virginia. Open as low as 6. It's up to as high as 9 right now. Total open 53 and a half, and it has been bet down here to 51. BYU and West Virginia. Virginia Tech and Louisville. Louisville opened a 12-point favorite at Circa. It's now down to 10. Total here opened 53 and a half for Virginia Tech and Louisville. And it is now down to 50. Virginia Tech and Louisville is now at 3:30 Eastern and 12:30 Pacific. Georgia Tech and Virginia. DraftKings opened Georgia Tech -1 on the road. They're now Virginia -2 at home. Circa opened at Virginia -2 at home, and it's now Virginia -3 at home. The move is to Virginia here. Clearly opened around Georgia Tech -1, and now we're seeing Virginia as high as a 3-point favorite. Bovada just opened them 3 as well, as Bovada is coming out with their numbers now as well. The total here, Georgia Tech and Virginia, opened 49 and a half. It's been bet up to 55 here. Big move here in this one to the over Georgia Tech and Virginia. Navy and Temple. Navy opened up a 7-point favorite. They're still a 7-point favorite at Circa. Total opened 37 and a half. It's been bet up here to 40 and a half. Navy and Temple is now at 11 Pacific, 2 Eastern. Also the time change for Georgia Tech and Virginia, also 11 Pacific, 2 Eastern. Iowa and Northwestern. DraftKings opened Iowa -8. They're now -6 at DraftKings. Circa opened a -5. They're still 5. The move here is clearly to Northwestern. This game is being played at Wrigley Field. The total for Iowa and Northwestern at Wrigley Field, it opened 29 and a half. It has been bet up to 31 and a half in the total that's going to be talked about by everyone all week in the game at Wrigley Field. Maybe are they only playing this one in between the first baseline and the third baseline? Or let me see how that works. Maybe they're going to play the entire outfield. They're not going to configure the seats, and the field is going to be 440 yards wide. I don't know, but whatever the case may be, the total here is expected to be somewhere around 30 points. Of course, we were expecting that, but Iowa and Northwestern, all right. That one's going to be, and it'll be watched as well at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. That'll be a pretty popular game, even though it should be ugly. All right, we're continuing on now with James Madison and Georgia State. DraftKings opened this one. James Madison -3. They're now up to 5.5 at DraftKings. Circa opened this one -4 for James Madison. It's already -6. So the move is on. Undefeated James Madison here for sure against Georgia State. It opened as low as 3. It's now -6 for James Madison here. Clearly, Madison will be much talked about with their winning streak. Total open 51.5. It is now 54.5. 3-point move to the over here. Madison and Georgia State, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Illinois and Minnesota. Give me a moment here. Okay. All right. Get my screen refreshed here. Illinois, Minnesota. This one open Minnesota -4. It's down to 3 at Circa right now. So the move here clearly on Illinois. Slight move. It's on Illinois. Total open 42.5. It's still 42.5. Time change here 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific for Illinois and Minnesota. Houston and Baylor. This one opened Baylor -4 at home. It's now open Baylor -5. It's now -4. Total opened 58.5. It's still 58.5. Oregon State and Colorado. This one opened 11 at Circa. It has now been bet up to as high as 13.5 at DraftKings. The move clearly is on Oregon State here, as low as 11 on the opener, as high as 13.5 now. Total opened 60.5. It is now 63.5. Oregon State and Colorado. This game is now at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Arizona State at Utah. This one opened as high as 15. This one opened 15 at DraftKings. It has now been bet all the way down to 12.5 at DraftKings. It opened 12 at Circa. It's now 13. So call it 12.5, 13 for Utah at home against Arizona State. Total opened 42.5. It has been bet down to 41. Army and Air Force. This year's game between Army and Air Force, we played at Mile High, and this one is opened Air Force -21. It's now Air Force -19 as Air Force remains undefeated. The total here opened 37.5. It has been bet down, of course. You got 2 service academies here, and it's been bet down to 36. UCLA and Arizona. This one opened a pick'em at Circa. It is now UCLA on the road -2 at Arizona here. Total opened 61.5. It is now 51.5. That's a 10-point move to the under. Did a double take here, but that's what it appears to me. 10-point move to the under at Circa. They just whiffed on this one. 10-point move here to the under. That's at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific, UCLA and Arizona. California and Oregon. Oregon opened 24.5 at DraftKings. They're down to 24 now. It opened 23 at Circa. It's still 23. So slight move here to Cal, getting the points on the road. Total opened 54.5. It is now 59.5. Total 5 points higher here. California and Oregon. Washington and USC. Washington opened a 4-point favorite at Circa. It's now 3 at DraftKings. That's where it opened at DraftKings. And it's also minus 3 currently at both books. Total here for Washington and USC opened 78.5. You could play 3 Northwestern and Iowa games practically inside this. Washington and USC total has moved down here to actually 77. So a little bit of a move to the under from 78.5 to 77. Washington and USC. That game is now at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Cal and Oregon, by the way, 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific. That's odd. Stanford and Washington State. Both DraftKings and Circa opened this game Washington State minus 14. It's now Washington State minus 13 at both sites. Total open 57.5. It has been bet up to 61. Stanford and Washington State. That game is now at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Utah State and San Diego State. Circa opened San Diego State a 1-point favorite. Utah State is now the 2-point favorite. The move here is on Utah State. Total open 51.5. It is now down. It is up to 57. Utah State, San Diego State from 51.5 to 57. 5.5 point move to the over. That game now at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Charlotte and Tulsa. Tulsa opened a 2.5 point favorite at DraftKings. That's where it still is. Circa opened the game 3 for Tulsa. It's still 3. Total opened 51.5. It has bet down to 49.5. Charlotte and Tulsa is now at 4 Eastern and 1 Pacific. Kansas and Iowa State. DraftKings opened this one, Kansas, -1 on the road. It's now a pick'em at DraftKings. Circa opened it, Iowa State -2, and that's where it's remained. Seems like the move here is to Iowa State in this one. Total opened 53.5, and that's where it remains. Kansas and Iowa State. Louisiana goes up against Arkansas State. Louisiana opened a 7-point favorite. They're now up to an 8-point favorite on the road. This one opened total 58.5. It is now up to 60. Louisiana and Arkansas State. That game time is now at 3 Pacific and 12 noon Eastern. 12 noon Pacific. 3 Eastern, 12 Pacific, Louisiana and Arkansas State. LSU and Alabama. Circa opened this one, Alabama -6. It's been bet down to Alabama -4. DraftKings opened this one at 4.5. It's still 4.5. So it looks like the move, though, here is to LSU. Total opened 57.5. It's been bet up to 60.5. LSU and Alabama. That game time is now at 7:45 Eastern, 4:45 Pacific. South Florida and Memphis. Memphis opened a 12-point favorite. It's now a 13-point favorite. Total here opened 68.5. It is now 67.5. South Florida and Memphis. That's now at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. Texas, San Antonio, and North Texas. Texas, San Antonio opened an 8-point favorite on the road. They're now a 7-point favorite. Total opened 67.5. It is now 69.5. UTSA and North Texas move to the over here. This game is now at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 Pacific. SMU and Rice. SMU opened a 9-point favorite on the road. They've been bet up to an 11-point favorite on the road. Total here opened 60 and a half. It is now 58. SMU and Rice is now at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Oklahoma at Oklahoma State.
Final.
DraftKings opened this one Oklahoma 7, and they now have it at 6. Circa opened the game 4 for Oklahoma on the road. They now have it at 6. Well, it's obviously 6, no matter how you got there. Total open 62 and a half. It's now 62 and a half. No change. Florida Atlantic at Alabama Birmingham. And in this one, it opened UAB, a 1-point favorite. And Florida Atlantic is now a 2.5-point favorite at DraftKings, a 1.5-point favorite at Circa. No matter what, Florida Atlantic, the move appears to be on Florida Atlantic here at UAB. Total open 61.5. It is now down to 60. Florida Atlantic and UAB is now at 3 Eastern and 12 Pacific. UL Monroe at Southern Miss. This one opened a pick'em at Circa. It is now 2 at Circa. It's 2.5 at DraftKings. That's where it opened at DraftKings. The total opened 56.5. It is down to 55.5. Monroe and Southern Miss is now at 4 Eastern and 1 Pacific. Kentucky at Mississippi State. Kentucky opened a 2.5-point favorite at DraftKings, and it has now been bet up to Kentucky -3. That's where it opened at Circa. That's where it still is right now at Circa. Total opened 43.5. It is now up to 46. 2.5-point move to the over Kentucky and Mississippi State. That game is now at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Arkansas at Florida. Florida opened 6 everywhere. They're still 6. Florida -6 at home against Arkansas. Total opened 52.5. It is now 48.5. Arkansas and Florida. This Arkansas and Florida game is now at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Missouri at Georgia. And in this one, DraftKings opened this one 17. They're now 16.5. Circa opened this one 15. They're now 16.5. Well, it looks like the move is kind of on Georgia here, I guess. Total opened 53.5, and it is now 55.5. Texas A&M and Mississippi. Ole Miss opened a 4-point favorite at DraftKings. That's what it still is there. It's a 5-point favorite opening at Circa for Ole Miss, and they're still 5. But let's just call it 4.5 here on our consensus. Total open 57.5. It's been bet down to 54 here. 3.5-point move to the under Texas A&M and Ole Miss. That game is now at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Final.
Kansas State at Texas. Texas opened a 6.5-point favorite at home against Kansas State. It's been bet down to Texas -5 at DraftKings. It opened 5 at Circa. It's still 5. Total opened 54.5. It's been bet down here to 52.5. Kansas State and Texas. Auburn and Vandy. Auburn opened an 11.5-point favorite at DraftKings. It's since been bet up to 13. It opened 13 at Circa. It's still 13. So the move has been on Auburn here in the early going. Total open 49.5. It's still 49.5. Auburn and Vandy time change to 4 Eastern and 1 Pacific. Hawaii and Nevada. Nevada opened a 4-point favorite everywhere. That's where it remains. Total opened 53.5. It is now 50.5. 3-point move to the under, Hawaii and Nevada. Louisiana Tech and Liberty. Liberty opens 17 at Circa. It's still 17 at Circa. Liberty open 18 at DraftKings. It's still 18 at DraftKings. Total open 60.5 at Circa. Been bet down here to
Final.
57.5. 3-point move to the under, Louisiana Tech and Liberty. Middle Tennessee State and New Mexico State. This one opened 2 at Circa. It's been bet up to 3 at Circa. Opened 2.5 at DraftKings, still 2.5 at DraftKings. A little bit of move here. New Mexico State takes the move. Total open 57.5. It is down to 57. UNLV at New Mexico. UNLV opened a 9-point favorite on the road. They're now an 11-point favorite here on the road at Circa. They're 11.5 at DraftKings. UNLV has been the move here at New Mexico. Total opened 57.5. It is now up to 61.5. 4-point move to the over here. UNLV and New Mexico. Georgia Southern at Texas State. This one opened Georgia Southern 2 at DraftKings. It's now up to 2.5 at DraftKings. It opened 3 at Circa, but it's down to 2 at Circa. I don't know where this game lies. I guess I'll call it 2.5. Georgia Southern on the road. Total open 74.5. It's been bet down here 2.5 points to 72. Purdue and Michigan. Michigan opened a 28-point favorite at Circa. They've since been bet up to 32.5. Michigan at home against Purdue. Circa or DraftKings opened the game 31. It's up to 32. The move is on Michigan here, whatever the case may be. Total open 45.5. It's been bet up to 48. 2.5-point move to the over here, Purdue and Michigan. Notre Dame at Clemson. Notre Dame opened a 1-point favorite at Circa. It was quickly bet up to 3.5. That's where it was at DraftKings already. It opened 3.5 at DraftKings. It still sits 3.5. Total open 40.5. It's up here to 46. Notre Dame and Clemson, 5.5-point move to the over here. Notre Dame and Clemson. Western Kentucky and UTEP. Western Kentucky opened an 8-point favorite on the road at Circa. They've been bet up to 11. DraftKings opened the game 10 for Western Kentucky, and that's where it still sits at 10. Total here open 54.5. It's still 54.5. Boise State, Fresno State. It opened 2.5 at DraftKings. I'm going to say it opened 3.5 at DraftKings. Might be bad penmanship in that one. And I have great penmanship, but maybe missed that one. Anyways, let's call it open 3 at Circa for Fresno State. They are up to -4 now. Just moved right now to -4. It's in red. Total open 55.5 here is now 55. Boise State and Fresno. Let me give a cursory glance here through the board once again. Then I'll let you go. Get you back to whatever you were doing today. Appreciate you watching this video. Like and subscribe to our channel. Free picks here on Tony's Picks, the 40,000 subscriber juggernaut. Thanks for offering your comments here today. Hello, Lucci. All right. I'm going to give a quick run around here to see if we've had any big movement on the games we just recited. Okay, we'll start right away. We said Toledo opened 14. They are now 16. So 2-point move here to Toledo. Northern Illinois, they are back down to 3 or 3.5 at Central Michigan. Ball State Bowling Green move on the total here from 40.5 to 40. Kent State and Akron, Bigger move here on the total under. We reported from 44.5 to 43, and it is now down here to 40. Kent State and Akron, 4.5 point move to the under here, down to 40. TCU, Texas Tech, total open 57.5. It is now up to 59. Wake Forest and Duke, we noted a big move on the total from 54.5 all the way down to 43.5, but it is back up here to 45.5. South Alabama and Troy, the total has already gone up again. It opened 43.5, moved to 45.5, now 46.5. That move that was once 7.5, Troy currently sits at -6. Boston College and Syracuse, the total is settled back to 51, was as low as 50. And the game sits Syracuse -3 pretty much everywhere. Coastal Carolina and Old Dominion, this total we reported was 54.5, down to 53.5. Now it's down to 52. Coastal Carolina, Old Dominion continues to move lower on the total. Miami of Florida and NC State. We reported it got as high as 5 for Miami, but it looks like it's back down here to 4 for Miami on the road. Wisconsin and Indiana, we reported the move from 11 to 10.5 for Wisconsin on the road. It's now 9.5 on the road at Circa. The total, which opened 42.5, is now up to 44, Wisconsin and Indiana. Jacksonville State and South Carolina in the Battle of the Gamecocks. Total opened 51.5. We reported the move to 53.5. It's now 54.5. We said that the game had gone from South Carolina -13 up to 16.5, but we're seeing it settle back down now. The move's coming back to Jacksonville State. In fact, 14 at Circa, but 15 at Bovada and 15.5 at DraftKings. So expect a settlement in there. Florida State and Pittsburgh, we already told you that total moved from 47.5 to 50.5. It's now up to 51. All right. Looking pretty clear on a lot of these here. Maybe let get out of here. Navy and Temple, 7 at Circa, but up to 8.5 at DraftKings. That Iowa Northwestern total we made fun of opened 29.5 and it went up to 31.5. This is the kind of the big story of this show, I would think, was this total here, but with Iowa and Northwestern. It's settled back down to right in the middle of that, 30.5. So with a game with Iowa favored, they're a 6-point favorite now. So you can make up the score in your right. Just look, if it's figure 30 points, Iowa, what is it going to be, 18 to 12? 18 to 12, Iowa wins. All right, bear with me here. Just looking at these to see just anything major in one direction. If it's a half a point, I'm not going to get back to you here. I mean, there'll be plenty of more movement. I just want to give anything that certainly is standing out. Utah down to 11.5 now against ASU. They opened 15 is what we reported. So big move here to ASU. We saw Utah kind of lay an egg at home against Oregon in the high-profile matchup in ASU with a great effort last week. They overachieved. So The move to ASU. Army and Air Force. Looks like Air Force has moved to 18.5 now at DraftKings. The move is on Army there. UCLA and Arizona reported that 10-point move on the total to the under 61.5 to 51.5. I guess just to make sure it wasn't a fluke. It's back up here to 53. All right. Appreciate you guys and joining me. Don't forget, I'll be here with the morning steam tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. We'll preview the World Series. Monday Night Football. Kansas and Iowa State open 53.5. It's up to 54. Not a half-point move. Just looking for something to keep you talking to you here while I finish going through the whole card. UL Lafayette, we reported from 7-9 or 7-8 on the road against Ark State, and Louisiana is now a 9-point favorite at Arkansas State. No, I think we're good to go here. Just about done recapping these games. Oklahoma's back up. Well, I think we settled on that at 6. Okay. Florida Atlantic UAB total here. No, I'm good. All right, you guys. I think I've had enough. Too much dead air and not enough moves. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Arkansas and Florida might have gotten taken off the key number. Yeah, this is a move I can report. Arkansas and Florida, we reported at 6. We left it at 6. It's already 5 now at DraftKings, 5.5 at Circa. The move's on Arkansas here against Florida so far. Missouri and Georgia, no, good to go there. All right, folks. Join you all week. We'll have a great week here. We got Maction this week we've already covered. And I think that's going to do it. Notre Dame -3 on the road. All right, I'm good to go. I'm satisfied. All right, that's a look at the lines. Just rewind it. You got a half hour of me talking to myself, reading off a bunch of numbers. Appreciate you guys very, very much. All right, that's going to do it for College Opening Lines. I'm Ramon Scott. Join me each week for this programming at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Pacific on Sundays as we go over the opening lines from Las Vegas here for the college football card. This is Ramon Scott. Thank you for joining me.